Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this month's Firearms Legal Protection webinar. I'm Ariana, as always, the host for our webinar. And tonight's webinar is about a topic that's a little serious, but also incredibly important, and one that's especially good to recognize as the school year is starting back up. Now, before we get into it, I want to reassure everyone this is not going to be too heavy or overwhelming of a conversation. We have the right people talking about it today, especially this beautiful woman right here. And our goal isn't to create fear or anything. It's just to give you knowledge and tools and confidence to protect the people that you care about most, obviously. And I'm super excited to introduce our guest tonight, Rebecca Santos, right here, and also known to many as the Bold Advocate. And Rebecca has dedicated her work to empowering women, children, and survivors as well. And she brings both professional knowledge and real life understanding to the table. And that's why we brought her on this webinar today. Plus, she has a course dedicated specifically to this topic that she so graciously is sharing with our viewers tonight, with very key highlights over this course. So there's going to be bits and pieces of that throughout here. And since getting to know Rebecca and hearing her talk on various topics, she's so compassionate, and her approach to safety and advocacy is very impressive. And I think you'll all find her insight truly eye-opening and encouraging. We also have a familiar face with us joining, John Brand. John's one of our directors here at FLP, and he brings over 15 years of training experience to the conversation. And with his background in instruction and managing gun stores, ranges, and all of that, and then some, and working for us, he is bringing the training and knowledge experience that will really help contextualize this topic into a practical standpoint. So I'm super excited to have them both on tonight. But they're going to be discussing grooming and what this looks like, which is a very, very serious, important topic. But what this looks like is how to recognize patterns early and how to respond in a way that keeps you and your loved ones safe. So Rebecca will guide us through recognizing and early warning signs and building awareness for families and taking those proactive steps to stop harmful behaviors. But as always, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So feel free to drop any questions you have in the comments. But John, do you want to get us started today?
Yeah, no, thank you, Ariana. And Becca, thanks for being here with us. Ariana kind of covered it. So I've got a little over 15 years experience in the gun industry. I've managed different gun ranges. I'm an instructor. I became a national instructor probably about, going on 4.5, almost 5 years ago now. I teach courses all over the country. I teach a lot of carry permit classes all over the country, teach a lot of laws. I've taught everything from, just basic intro courses and youth courses all the way up to holster, action dynamic, tactical courses. This is not going to be the subject where you're going to hear a lot of input from me about telling you what you should be looking for, what the early warning signs are. A lot of the webinars, if you've seen me on here with the attorneys and other people, it's more in my wheelhouse. I want to make it very clear. Rebecca is the expert here tonight. Okay, this is what she does. And since getting to know her, I see her passion. She has been an amazing partner for FLP. We are so happy and fortunate that we got to meet her. And I met Becca out at a company called WAFT. It stands for Where Our Families Train. It is some of the most amazing training you can get in this country. I've done a lot of training courses over the years. I've never experienced the kind of training that I have experienced at WAFT. And that's where I got to meet Becca. And she'll tell you how much fun it is, but what a great learning experience it is also. And you guys that know me, I always tell you, I don't care that I'm an instructor. I don't care how many students I've taught over the last 15, going on 16 years now, actually. I'm an eternal student myself. There's always something new to learn. We can't know everything. If you meet an instructor that thinks they know everything, get a different instructor. That's why I always take training classes every year. I'm always wanting to better myself, not only as a student, but also as an instructor. Going and training with these other instructors and getting their insight and their knowledge and some skill sets from them that I've never learned before. And now I have that skill set. It makes me a better instructor for my students. So I am so fortunate and so glad that I got to meet Becca. We hit it off out there at WAFT. And then the next time I was out there and she came back and she came with her family, and I got to meet her husband, Jason, and I got to meet her 2 daughters who, man, God help you if you mess with her daughters. They will fight you. It is that simple. They do not back down from a challenge. And it's just amazing to be here to be able to learn with you, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask questions because I am definitely interested in this, and I want to learn from Becca like the rest of you. So it's mainly going to be the Becca show tonight, and I'll be asking some questions, but I'll turn it over to her and get her to kick us off with this amazing information she's going to give us.
Sounds good, guys. I am so honored to be here. I'm really excited that I was invited to this table. Like John and Ariana mentioned, I'm Rebecca, the Bold Advocate on social media. I'm try to be on as many socials as possible because that's where kids are. And unfortunately, that's where predators are. Anywhere that there's kids or teens, predators are going to be there. And a little bit about myself. I am a child advocate, like we mentioned. I'm also do a lot of investigative journalism, exposing corruption that has a direct impact on children. I am a wife of an amazing man. His name's Jason. He's a military veteran and the love of my life. And I am a mom of three, a 20-year-old and twin 14-year-olds. And unfortunately, but thankfully, I am a survivor of grooming and abuse. I was exposed to unfortunately, I was exposed to pornography at a very young age, John. I was, I think, about 5 years old, walking into the living room and seeing my dad watching it like it was family entertainment. I mean, I grew up to bringing friends over and then him asking what kind they wanted to watch with him. So I didn't know at the time that this was not normal behavior, that this was predatory behavior. I knew how uncomfortable it made me. But it was something that I told myself I don't want anybody to ever have to experience that again, and the repercussions of what's to follow, because that's a lifelong battle that people will fight if they are exposed very young. And then going into my teenage years, I had my mom's cousin who unfortunately befriended me. He was several years older than me, almost an adult, and then became an adult. And he lived with us for quite some time. And I went to my mom and I said, Mom, Chris is making me feel really uncomfortable. He's making passes on me. And he's like, buying me a lot of things, and I thought he was like an older brother, but now it's like crossing a line. And my mom looked at me square in the eye and she said, Rebecca, look at the way you dress. You're welcoming this behavior. You want it and you like it. And I said, ew, no, I don't want this, and no, I don't like it. And so those stories, along with, I know I shared with you, John, I was a young mom. I was home alone. My husband was at work. I got a bang, bang, bang on the door, and someone tried to break into my house. They knew my name. They tried to get into the window, the patio. I barricaded my daughters in a closet. They were super young. The twins were, I want to say, 8 months old. My oldest daughter was about 8. And by God's grace, he wasn't able to get in, but I had no way to defend myself. No training, no firearms. I had a butcher knife in each hand, a Bluetooth on, calling my dad, calling my husband, calling 911. Nobody got there before the man left. And so at that point, I came at a crossroads in my life and I said, I was a child left unprotected. How am I going to protect my daughters without training, without the knowledge of how to respond in these situations? So I was about 24 when that happened. I'm 38 now. So it's been a journey of about 14 years of developing my knowledge, developing my skill set, my training, and then passing that on to my kids. So that way, when they're independent, they know how to identify issues and how to respond to them.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me that story when we met, and you were home alone with the kids, and you didn't have firearms at the time, or anything like that. I remember you talking about having the two kitchen knives in your hand and everything like that. But for me, I just feel so bad you went through that, because you told me the police did finally come, and they had no idea who it was. So
Yeah.
now you don't know, are they going to come back?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of got you on your training journey
Yeah.
and got you into learning self-defense, with a whole multitude of tools, not just firearms,
Right.
but a whole array of tools that you can use to protect yourself and defend yourself. And I think it's amazing. I was so happy to see you out there the second time, and you had your two daughters out there, and they're learning all these techniques, and they're learning how to use a multitude of weapons also. Stuff as simple as flashlights and
Yeah.
pens and Kubotans, and no, I've got mine right here. So
I don't leave from one room to the next without my flashlight. That's how important it is to me now.
yeah, and I mean it was so fun to watch them grow, because I mean, and you saw it, you know how your daughters are, and it's because of how you and Jason have raised them, and you've done an amazing job with them. And when there was danger where they could have fled and got away from danger, they were like, no, bring it on. And they started coming closer to the attacker to fight and defend themselves, which is great. But at the end of the day, I mean, and this, the goal is to live.
Yeah.
And you just have no idea what's going to happen. So if you can retreat to safety and get out of a bad situation, do it. But to watch them from their first run to their last run, and them picking up the danger signs and the threats, and seeing it instantly, and realizing, nope, this isn't worth it, and they would just leave, and they would go be safe. And it was just so amazing that you brought your family there for them to learn. And it's something everybody needs to know. It really is. And this is why we continue to train. And I mean, God bless you. You've been there almost as many times as me now. You and your
I don't
family are
know.
hooked.
I
So
think I've been there 5 times. Once by uh, by FLP, you guys got me over there for a weekend, and you guys really believed in what I was doing, and I just can't thank you enough for that, because that weekend literally changed my life. It
yeah,
changed the way I saw danger and the way I saw safety. I learned a lot about myself in that weekend. I learned that I can tend to escalate situations, not de escalate situations.
yeah,
And so it was really eye opening. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how I can better communicate with parents who contact me and say, I don't have the ability to carry a firearm with me. I'm in this state, or I'm in this country. What do I do? And so just being able to practically give people advice, because scrolling on social media is going to literally, any kind of tactics you learn in that is going to leave your brain as soon as that first adrenaline dump happens,
yeah,
right? So I'm excited to be here. I love what FLP stands for, because both of us believe in equipping people before a threat happens. And so I'm here to equip you, everyday people, how to identify grooming and abuse, and how to respond to it. Because a lot of people, they just don't know the dangers out there and what to do if they suspect something.
yeah. And I mean, I think all the parents definitely, I think, can agree that the most important thing in your life is your kid, or kids in your case. If you have multiple. But as important as this is for the kids to understand this and to recognize these signs, this is helpful information for everybody, for adults, so parents can recognize the signs too. This is something everybody needs to know, and it's unfortunate that we have to have this type of talk. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is that people are willing to hurt kids, let alone other people, but that they're willing to hurt kids.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very important topic. And I'm so interested in learning, everything you're going to talk to us about tonight, the signs, and just understanding how to keep everybody safe. Because
Yeah.
that is
Well,
our goal at the end of the day, is to stay safe.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think our most important group of people to keep safe is our future, and that's the next generation. And it's not, they are unfortunately being attacked from every direction, from schools, at churches, at the park, online. in their homes,
Yeah.
these kids need us to advocate for them. So I'm excited to dive in. Can you see my screen right now?
I can see it now.
We
And
have a
I also,
beautiful
and
assistant helping us on the background. Perfect.
I think you met them last weekend. I'm not 100%, but I see that Keith and the 2A boys are on
Yes.
watching.
Oh, yay!
And I mean, I can't say enough great things about them. You know, I've hung out with them several times, met his two sons and his daughter. And I mean, I got to tell you, Keith and his wife, they are raising their kids correctly. And
Yeah.
it's not a shock to see them on here to learn more about keeping their kids safe as well.
Well, I just saw that. I can see the comments. So, hey, Keith, it's so good to see you guys here. He actually was at my first WAFT training that weekend. And then he was at this past one that I went with my husband. And it was just so sweet to see that he even mentioned that I've grown a lot in such a short period of time. And so that was really encouraging for me, which means I feel like if you can get out to WAFT, everybody needs at least one weekend, just one. But I digress. Let's dive in, shall we? All right. So, like I mentioned, my name is Rebecca Santos. I started off as a survivor with a passion to not ever see another child hurt the way I had hurt. I was a child left unkept. And I feel like when girls are left unkept and unprotected, they grow up to be immensely fierce moms. And so that's me. And I started working for a nonprofit a few years ago that focused on preventing child abuse in churches. And I realized that the courses and the classes that are available to help people identify abuse are mostly available to child care workers, church people, and medical employees, schools, and things like this, but not for everyday people. So I spent 2 years building out an online course that you can find on my website at theboldadvocate.org that will help you, an everyday person, identify grooming, child abuse, exploitation, and trafficking if you suspect it. And then, furthermore, how do I respond to it? So, I'm taking that course and I'm condensing it here today in about a 40-minute discussion. So, if at any time you guys have questions, very open forum, feel free to ask. I do have a list of questions here that I'm going to try to answer throughout the presentation. All right, so awareness and understanding. Before we dive in deep, we have to understand the current climate that we're living in, okay? So right now, about 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 18. Can we just let that sink in for a second? I have 3 daughters. Unfortunately, one of my 3, I had one when I was a teenage mom. Her biological father was not a good guy. She is one of those 3, unfortunately. The other 2 are very well protected, and I'm very thankful for that. But then the 4, right? 1 in 4 boys. That is jaw-dropping. And a lot of statistics will tell you it's more like 1 in 12. But the reason I put 1 in 4, and the reason others do agree it's 1 in 4, is because boys are widely not reporting abuse. Why? It's glorified in society. You look at movies, you look at TV shows, and they are glorifying boys being preyed on by teachers, by older women, by cougars. And so this is important for you to have these discussions with your kids preventatively, so that way they can even understand when someone could possibly be targeting them. Now, these statistics right here, 92% of abused know who their abuser is. So when we look at that, 58% of that 92 is acquaintances. So people that you know, but you don't know very well. And then 34% of that is family members. So it's important that we understand this, John, because we all want to say grandpa would never do that. Yeah. But when my daughter, or when your daughter, or whoever's daughter does not feel comfortable hugging grandpa or hugging uncle or hugging auntie, there's a reason for that. And we need to start asking more questions.
Yeah, that's insane. The 92% statistic. That's just wow. It made my hair stand up. I mean, that's just crazy. And then, you know, it's not random. It's people that you know, and I know you're going to talk about it later, and you know about how they groom them to be able to do that to that person, and it's just terrible. The 92%. I just, you know, you talked about, you know, it's probably underreported with the boys. Could that be true with the girls too, though? That there's plenty of them that didn't report it, or maybe they didn't report it till way later in life, when they
Yeah.
became an adult.
Well, that's actually what this 80% represents. 80% of child abuse is not reported until that child becomes an adult.
Right. Yeah.
Now, think about this for a second. In the state of Florida, they just changed the statute of limitations for abuse. It used to be that after a certain amount of time, you could not report. And if you did report, it would not be criminal. It would only be a civil lawsuit. Now they changed it, I believe, in 2020, where if it's reported and happened after 2020, the statute of limitation no longer applies. There was a huge case out of Clay County where a boy was a wrestler and he was preyed on by his wrestling coach. He reported it to the authorities, but because it happened before 2020, the authorities could do nothing. Nothing. They had evidence. They could do nothing. So this is a problem. We want to move the needle so that way people feel more comfortable reporting. We have to change the statutory laws.
Yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be a statute of limitations. I mean, you know, I know certain crimes, statute of limitations, whether it's 3 years, 7 years, whatever, and after that, there's nothing they can do. But it should be like murder. Murder's indefinite. You can be charged for murder 40 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of girls also don't report because there's a lot of repercussion that comes with that. There's this stigma of being a survivor now. There's this stigma of, well, you're destroying a family because you reported this. No, I would beg to differ that person who preyed on that young girl is the one who destroyed the family. We need to stop pointing fingers at the reporters and the people that are coming forward bravely and boldly, because nobody, unless you are a survivor, knows how much courage it takes to actually come forward with that information.
Yeah, I don't understand what's happened in society with all the victim shaming and victim blaming. That needs to stop. They're
Absolutely.
not the problem. The abuser is the problem.
Yes. So, John, something big happened in 2020. Do you know what it was?
What's that?
COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What happened with COVID? It forced tons of kids inside their homes, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And when that happened, we had a ton of online enticement reports skyrocketed, doubled. Why? Because now predators had easy access to kids. Kids were on their computers all day long doing school, and then even after school doing video games and social media and all these things. And so it's so important, guys, that you remember that 70% of grooming starts online. And we're going to dive into that. And if you suspect anything, it's important that you use this. So I'm going to leave this on the screen for a minute. Take a picture of it if you'd like. But it's important that you have a resource to be able to go to if you suspect any kind of online crimes against children. Now, there's this one. Then there's Cyber Tip. There's another one. I'm going to make sure that we put it in the notes before we leave for today. But there's another one that you can even report anonymously. So that way, if you, for whatever reason, don't want to be involved with the authorities, you have the ability to report online exploitation and enticement anonymously. John, do you even know what online enticement is?
I mean, I'm guessing they're contacting kids, whether it's through their social media platforms. And I mean, I don't know all of them, but, obviously there's, Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and all those. So I'm guessing they're contacting them either, through their social media or maybe online playing video games. And because, I mean, you've got that going on where, I mean, it's kids that are joining the same lobbies as grown adults because they don't have something separate for them. And that's why it's so important for parents to be involved in their kids' lives, talk to them, look at what they're looking at, you're being a good parent, I mean, we all remember what it was like to be a kid and you want your parents to leave you alone. But I mean, it's different now. We didn't have all that. I'm 45. I didn't have all this stuff growing up as a kid. We didn't have, online video games and social media. We had video games, but it was like a campaign or whatever. You just played, Super Mario Brothers and stuff. You weren't playing with other people or weren't other people to talk to. And I know kids don't like it. Oh, leave me alone, mom. Leave me alone, dad. It doesn't matter. You need to be involved in their life. You need to see what they're looking at. It's the only way to keep them safe. You need to find out who they're talking to, and see if there's any kind of grooming going on.
And I think it's important that parents remember that in the span of a child's entire life, them being a child is the shortest amount of time. Yeah. They will thank you when they get older and they become an adult for protecting them from these dangers. Now, let me advance the slide. Okay. It's no surprise to you that America is literally breeding a demand for child sexual abuse material. From kids having access to the internet at any time, all the time, it is important that if your child needs to have a cell phone, that you have parameters and safety measures on that cell phone so you know what they're doing, when they're doing it, and who is contacting them. Yeah. Having their location on as well is a benefit. We have TV shows like Toddlers and Tiaras and this Cuties movie that is literally exploiting young girls. This Cuties movie was a French film that the state of Texas tried to sue Netflix for showing and putting on Netflix, if you remember, because they were not only exploiting these young girls, but they were showing them in a very provocative way. Then we have companies like Balenciaga, who is promoting BDSM with children.
I hadn't seen that one. I knew about the Cuties movie or show or whatever it was. Was it a movie, I guess? I only know about because Attorney General Ken Paxton from Texas sued Netflix over this. And so I'm reading the story about it. And I'm like, how is this allowed to be legally made?
Right.
Like, how are they how is it allowed to be filmed and made, let alone then broadcast on something like Netflix?
Exactly. And then we have the LOL dolls. If I don't know if you have young daughters, but my daughters were super into these LOL dolls. And then we realized that once you dip them into cold water, magically, they're wearing lingerie on little babies. Help me understand, folks. Then we have The Sound of Freedom, which was completely demonized. It was exposing child trafficking, but it was labeled as a conspiracy theory, QAnon nonsense. Dads who watched it apparently had parasites in their brain. There some crazy stuff that the media like to push. And one of the latest ones, if you guys recall, and I don't have a picture of it up here, is Barbie, along with Wicked, had made Barbie dolls to promote the movie, and in the box and on the outside of the box they were promoting a pornographic website to children. And I contacted them. I wrote to them. I called them. I confronted department stores that were told about this misprint but kept the product on the shelf. And they refused to recall it. They said it was recalled. It was never recalled. It was a debacle. And they just said, oh, guys, it was a mistake. It was a misprint. No, you're promoting pornography to children.
How I don't understand how they're allowed to get away with this, because if it was just a parent doing this to their kid, CPS would be involved instantly, police would be involved instantly, but for
Yeah,
the big
it's
corporations, they just get a pass.
it's a violation of consumer law. If there is
Child
anything in
endangerment.
a child's product that can hurt a child, they are, by United States consumer law, required to pull it all from the shelf and correct it. But instead, they communicated with Kohl's, for example, to put a sticker over the website. Because a sticker over a box, and they even
That could
had
be peeled off.
inserts. Yeah, like sure. I literally was taking the stickers off of the boxes and showing them how easy it was. So me and some other moms, as part of Mom Army, we communicate and we advocate for these kids, because a lot of parents are not aware, and we want to preserve the innocence of these children.
Right.
So let's define and differentiate grooming and abuse. All right, so child abuse is any act or failure to act resulting in imminent risk, serious injury, death, physical or emotional or sexual harm, or exploitation of a child. There are several kinds of abuse, and it's very important for you to know this so that way you can work to be able to identify them. Emotional, physical, sexual, neglect, spiritual, elder abuse, and vulnerable adult. Just because someone is an adult does not mean that they cannot be abused, and it does not mean that you can't report that abuse. If someone has a disability, they are considered a vulnerable adult. If someone is elderly, they are considered a vulnerable adult. And it is important that you are able to identify when an elder is being manipulated, because financial abuse is another one on here that I did not put on, but it is very common with the elder population.
Yeah.
Then we have grooming. This is the hot topic. We're going to spend a good amount of time on this. But grooming is the process of building trust, isolation, and controlling a vulnerable individual. There's different modalities of grooming: digital, emotional, and physical. So there's a lot of assumptions that we make that I want to kind of put to bed, okay? There's the assumption that the community that we live in is safe. If we remember those statistics, then we realize that there are wolves in sheep's clothing that are pretending to be good guys when they're actually not. Another assumption is that groomers and abusers fit a profile. They do not. They have an uncanny way of putting on a mask so that way they cannot be detected by the average person. So they build trust and they put on this mask, and behind closed doors, they are not who you think they are. Another assumption is this will never happen to me. I never thought it would happen to me.
No.
I never thought it would happen to any of my kids with how protective of a mom I am, but it does. It does happen. And so you cannot let your guard down.
Yeah. And I mean, that's true with so many different things. I mean, even with something as simple as self-defense, and I tell people this all the time, you can't have the attitude, or the mentality rather, of it'll never happen to me. You can have the mentality of, I hope it never happens to me.
Yeah.
But you have to take steps to be prepared, because you live in reality. You see the news stories, it happens. So do you just think you've got the winning lotto ticket and it'll never happen to you? That's not the way to go through life. You need to hope it never happens, but you need to take the steps and the precautions to make sure that if it is about to happen, that you're recognizing the danger signs, you're recognizing the threats. So that way you can better protect yourself. And in this case, especially with what we're talking about, better protect your children and make sure they stay protected.
Yes, absolutely. So there are two different kinds of predators. There's the persuasion predator, and then there's the power predator. The majority of predators are persuasion predators, and it is so important that you know this. The power predator is someone who's going to take a child by force. This is your kidnapping, and this is, in some cases, trafficking. But the majority of the time, it's your persuasion predator who uses personality, charm, influence, resources. They are literally wolves in sheep's clothing. They look innocent on the outside, but on the inside, they are ravenous wolves. They are seeking someone to devour. And so my goal here is to make you and your kids hard targets. So that way don't have any low-hanging fruit from your family to attack.
And I'm guessing a lot of them, for the persuasion predator, I'm guessing a lot of them, they're in some sort of position of either power or, influence, or a trustworthy profession, where you're just, your whole life you're told, oh, you can trust them, it's a police officer, you can trust them, it's a doctor, you can trust them, it's your priest, you can trust your coach. And it's somebody that's in that possession of power where you've been taught that they have your best interest. And so now you're just kind of doing what they want.
Yeah. Absolutely. Grooming often looks like kindness to outsiders. They're being kind. They're making it harder to detect because they're so kind. They're super nice. They use their influence. Think about, like, I mentioned the wrestling coach, right? He was a coach who poured into his wrestlers, and he was very specific about certain wrestlers. He would target kids that came from broken families.
Yeah.
This happens on purpose. So that way, I think we've even talked about this before, John. There was a prolific child abuser who he said that he looks for a family that doesn't have a strong male as the leader.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be confronted by someone who could expose them or overpower them. My goal is to empower women and children, not just men, to be able to identify these individuals and then stay the heck away from them or report them if there's been a crime that has happened. Thankfully, in the state of Florida, grooming is now identified as a criminal crime that can be prosecuted. That's not the case in every state.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, these people are cowards. So, they want to go after people that they think are weak or that they can control or that they can overpower. And they definitely don't want to come up against an alpha. And it's just, I understand why they say that, they don't want to go after a family that's got what they view as a strong alpha male. But they need to understand there's strong alpha women too. So,
yes.
God help them if they decide, like they don't see you out one time with Jason. And they think, oh, okay, she's not with Jason. And I don't know, maybe you don't wear your ring when you work out or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
My wife wouldn't wear her ring when she was working out just so nothing would happen to it and get scratched and all that. But God help them if they approach you. But I understand their thinking they don't want to approach an alpha male because, again, they're cowards. They want an easy victim. And that's with most criminals. Most criminals, they want someone who's an easy victim that they think won't fight back, that they can control. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been many times where I have been followed. I've been followed and I've been with my kids or even by myself. And I've had to call my husband and be like, hey, what do I do? What do I do in this situation? He's like, look at them dead in the eye. Be confident. And if you have your gun with you, take it out. Yeah. Just get it ready in front of them and see what they do. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, right? I've learned a lot since that has been my life in the past.
Yeah.
But now I know that I can interrupt someone's OODA loop, right? Yeah. Just by having something like a flashlight. Yeah. A predator runs on scripts. They run in patterns. They are going to set you up and they want you to fall into it. But if you can take something like a flashlight and you can shine it in their face, that disrupts everything that they just thought was going to happen. So you have enough time to get out of Dodge if possible. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but
From the legal standpoint, I definitely wouldn't recommend just pulling
Yeah,
out the gun. You're going
I
to get
know.
hit with brandishing charges, assault charges, possibly aggravated assault if they say you pointed it at them. Even if you didn't, people lie all the time. And, they say you pointed at them because, they haven't done anything at this point to justify using force or deadly force for that matter.
Right.
But yeah, the flashlight, and it's like Philip. He's the owner of Waft out there in Florida. And he says all the time, and this is where I learned how important a flashlight can be. And it's why I've always told people to carry other tools, not just to carry a firearm. I've always encouraged my students carry pepper spray. Now I encourage them all the time, not just to, carry pepper spray, but to carry the flashlight. And as Philip says, when they see you, you're making it known, hey, I see you. I see you're there. You're hitting them with the flashlight. Mm-hmm. And criminals tend to think, well, if they have one tool, they might have another tool.
Yes.
And is it going to be a gun?
I'm so glad you said that.
So
yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because after that situation happened, where that guy was banging on my door trying to get in, my first instinct was, I need to learn how to shoot. I need to learn how to carry. So I lived in Pennsylvania at the time. I got my concealed carry license. A friend of mine, her brother was an NRA marksman, so he took me to the range. He taught me how to shoot. But I wish there was an in-between. So that way, when that individual who was stalking me later on, and I had my concealed carry permit at that time, as he was approaching my car at a gas station, I'm in my car. Thankfully, my car doors were locked. He tried to get into my car. I'm like, okay, I guess now is a good time to show him that I mean business. But if I had something simple like a flashlight, with a bezeled edge, right? Something that's nice and sharp. And I learned how to strike the right way without breaking my fists or anything in my hand. I feel a lot more confident now, not having to pull out my firearm. And I feel like I am prepared to start with the flashlight, not start with the most deadly weapon I have in my arsenal.
Yeah. And that's the problem. If you just carry one tool, then that's your only option. That's the only tool. And
Exactly.
if it's just a firearm, like it is for a lot of carry permit holders, a lot of them, that's all they carry. They just carry a gun. I have a firearm on me. I have a knife on me. I have a flashlight on me. I have a collapsible baton that I keep in the side door of my truck. I've got stainless steel pins. These are nothing. These will cost you like $5 to $10, depending on where you buy them at. It's I'm sure there's other ones out there. This is a Zebra. What is it? F701 Zebra. It's stainless steel. I can use it like a Kubaton, and really cool too, I can take it on a plane.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them won't let you take the Kubatons through TSA anymore, but I can take this pin. It makes it on the plane every single time. I have several of them. I even have in my desk drawer here, I have one I haven't even opened yet. No, that was not a paid advertisement for Zebra pins. I'm just
Come on, are we showing all of our tools right now, John? I got my my nice little knife that I know how to fight with now, thanks to Ben from Waft. Y'all, I cannot talk highly enough about Waft. But let's carry on, shall we?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so the process of grooming, this is something that a lot of people just are not aware of. So the first thing that a predator has to do is gain the trust of a community. That might be a church, that might be a school, that might be a coaching team, that might be a social platform, that might be a video game. Think about a community not just in person, but also digital. So they gain the trust of a community. The second thing they do is they target an individual. So they lock in on someone, and when they do that, they gain the trust of a family. So this might look like, mostly in person, this might look like a single mom who is really tight paying her bills, and so this person comes in after learning this and says, hey, let me help you. I have enough. It's not a big deal. Or, let me buy your kids some school supplies, or let me buy them a new winter coat, or let me take your kid to soccer practice. I know you have to work and they really want to go to soccer tonight. Whatever the case is, they slowly start gaining the trust of the family. So that way they slowly can start isolating the child. So after that, they start showering that individual with extra attention and gifts. Maybe there is a teacher to a student and they give them some, bumps on their grade, or they give them a surprise gift for doing so well in class. There's so many different ways that they can facilitate extra attention and gifts. In online communities, it is Robux on Roblox. So online game currency is given to kids, showered to kids from what they perceive to be friends. So that's something to really, really look out for, is if your kids are really into a certain game or an online social platform, are they getting online currency for different packages or whatever the case is? And if so, and you're not the one giving it to them, where is it coming from? And then this one is really, this is the telling part. So they gain the trust of the community, they gain the trust of the family, they start showering with gifts and attention, but then they test the child's silence. So, for example, a teacher will have a child come up to the front of the classroom, and this is important too because predators will even covertly uh, molest a child in front of other children and other adults. And they get off on this. So, for example, a teacher calls a child up to the front of the classroom, asks the child to come behind the desk. Big desks, right? A lot of classrooms have these big desks. You can't see underneath the desk. And they'll say, hey, good job, pat them on the back, lower, lower, lower. If that child does not tell their parent, then they know that they have the green light to take the next step. Another one, let's say a church leader is there's they have a special interest in a child, and they will call the child to them and they will touch them underneath their clothes. They'll start with a hug, and then they'll start sliding their hand up underneath their clothes. And if the child doesn't say anything, then they have the green light to continue that kind of activity. If the child does say something, they'll say something like, oh, well, there was a chicken pox outbreak. We just wanted to make sure. Or they were saying that their back hurt. I was just checking. And so these little excuses are just guises to try to hide the real thing that's going on. So talk to your kids. Did anything make you feel uncomfortable at church today? Did anybody talk to you that in a way that they shouldn't? But you need to proactively be talking to them about what inappropriate speech, inappropriate body contact looks like. A lot of kids, especially if you are a churchgoer, are told to obey their elders. I've been told that for decades. Obey your elders. This is something that every kid is almost told. But are you telling them what to do if an elder makes them feel uncomfortable?
Exactly. Yeah. Listen to your teacher. You hear that all the time too. Do what your teacher says. And yeah. And I mean, I know it's not the same thing. And oh man, it's so hard not to get mad.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. It really is. Like, I mean, these people out there doing this to kids, they better thank God that there's not a Purge Night for real in our country.
You're not kidding. But the thing is, John, that do you know why it's so rampant now?
No.
If you had to take a guess, if we have viewers right now, I'm gonna minimize my screen a little bit to see if anybody in the comment section knows why this is so rampant right now. I'm going to wait for your answer. We're going to get back to that because I'm going to elaborate on these other two components, but I want to see if anybody can nail this on the head for me. So, like I mentioned, they start by finding a vulnerable target. They gain trust of the family and the community. They fill a need. So they're meeting a need of some sort. That might be a tutoring need, a coaching need, it might be a spiritual need, it might be a physical need, financial need, things of these sorts. And then they isolate the child. So They will do what they can to get the child alone. Let's say it's a youth leader. Well, there's a whole bus of kids going to camp, but I want to take your kid by myself because they have a health issue and we just want to make sure, like these phony excuses. Or, I know you're a really busy mom, and so I can take your kid to school every day and pick them up. I work from home. It's not a big deal. I'm happy to do that for you. They try to isolate the kid, but it's not just physical isolation, it's emotional and manipulative isolation, where they will say things like, oh, your dad doesn't understand you, but I do. Your mom doesn't understand what you're going through, but I understand because I was just like you when I was a kid. So they build that trust with these kids because these kids, first of all, their frontal lobe is not fully developed yet. They think emotionally, they're not thinking rationally. And that's where they need parents to come in and think rationally for them. Then they desensitize. So, desensitization is things like showing them inappropriate memes, sending them, asking them if they've ever watched movies that have explicit scenes in them, maybe sitting down for a movie night with them and showing them pornography. They desensitize and start sexualizing the relationship. And then once they've gotten at that point, then they try to maintain control. Coercion, threats, even further abuse. I will harm your family if you tell anyone, but I love you and I'm the only one that understands you. This is the pattern. This 6 stages of grooming that tends to be repeatable and very common once we discover that someone is indeed a groomer. So someone said not enough strong parents, mostly fathers. Actually, that's not the primary reason, although the deterioration of the family certainly has something to do with it. It's actually pornography. Pornography is available vastly. It was not like that 20, 30 years ago. You couldn't access it as it was not as accessible as it is now. Kids even are watching pornography. I think the average age of a child being introduced to pornography is 12 years old. 12.
My guess was going to be that there's not strict enough punishments. There's not harsh enough punishments for them. That was going to be my guess, but yeah,
Well,
no, that makes
when you
sense.
watch pornography, you might start off with like, soft core or whatever, and then that doesn't satisfy anymore. So you start going lower and lower and lower into debauchery. And then you have people who are, this is where the root of trafficking is happening, is the pornography industry. They are manipulating young girls online. They're coercing them to run away from home in the guise of, I'm your boyfriend, I'll take care of you, I love you, showering them with gifts. This is what is fueling the trafficking and pornography industry.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense that you say that. I was just thinking, man, not enough harsh punishments for them. Because I mean, you can look in your neighborhood or you can do a search in the area and see the sex offenders that are living in your area. Now, granted, you don't know any of their stories. I mean, it could be, for some of them, not obviously the majority of, like a couple of them, it could have been, oh, he was 19, the girlfriend was 17, and parents found out and were mad, and now for the rest of their life that person's a sex offender, and come to find out, hey, they're married now. But for the overwhelming majority, it's people that did awful evil things to people. Why are they not still in jail or under the jail?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will excuse teenagers as just running away, when in all actuality, they were groomed by someone 9 out of 10 times, and then they are being sold into the trafficking industry.
Oh, wow.
And so let's stop excusing teenage girls from running away and stop looking for them. We need to be pursuing them more, because the chances of them ending up in human trafficking is going to be very high.
Wow.
All right. So Targets. We talked a little bit about targets, vulnerable homes, broken homes, homes that don't have that alpha male figure, foster kids, kids that are emotionally distraught for whatever reason. Maybe they have disabilities, kids that can't speak yet. These are targets of sexual predators. And if you've been abused in the past, then you're more susceptible to be preyed on again. So I mentioned there's different types of child abuse. One is a pattern of behavior that attacks an individual's emotional development. So this is emotional abuse, failure by a parent or caregiver to provide that child with love, emotional support, or guidance. This one is a lot harder to prosecute and bring to any kind of criminal charges. So one thing I like to encourage, I've, by God's grace, been able to save some kids from abusive parents and parents that have trafficked them. Record, document. Even teenagers that are left unkept. If you're able to document the abuse, times, dates, pictures of any kind of physical signs, but even videotaping how someone's talking to you and the manipulation, I highly encourage that. Now, different indicators of emotional abuse, verbal intimidation, coercion, manipulation, showing abusive images is not considered physical abuse, it is emotional abuse, abusive language. Now, some of the extreme behaviors is withdrawal. So if your kid just all of a sudden withdraws from you, you were very well connected, she or he was telling you all the things all the time, and now all of a sudden they're really standoffish, you need to dig deeper. If all of a sudden they get very aggressive towards you, or they're having a lot of mood swings. Now, obviously, teenagers, they go through mood swings, right? They're going through bodily changes. So we want to see multiple things checked and not just one thing here and one thing here. There needs to be a pattern of being able to identify these things. So some physical indicators, low self-esteem, extreme fear or anxiety of making mistakes. That these are signs of emotional abuse. Physical abuse is a little bit more obvious to us. Inappropriate punishments, extreme punishments, physical force or action that results in any kind of injury. Even with chemical or physical restraints, we're seeing that a lot more now, where kids are being put in cages and then they're being trafficked, they're being trafficked and then they're being rescued by the authorities. It's crazy. So it's not just whipping, burning, choking, all these physical signs or physical acts. It's also restraining a child that's considered physical abuse. So different things you can look for. Bruises that are not on the extremities, or that they look like they were caused by some like object. If you see a kid that has like straight lines, for example, on their extremities or on their back, that might have been caused by a hanger or a whip or something of that sort. And a lot of times it's just used to keep a child in line with what the individual wants them to do. So it's rather unfortunate that children have to go through this. But the reason that that number at the beginning is so high, with 80% being reported as adults, is because kids don't realize that this is abuse. They think that this is normal, especially if they've been raised this way their whole life.
Yeah.
So some things to look out for, John.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, it does. Everything you're saying, they just don't know any better. To them, that is life. That's what people do in their mind.
Yeah. Wow. So if you see a kid who's flinching when approached or touched, even if it's just, innocently, that's a sign. Showing fear of certain adults, getting more aggressive, these are taught behaviors. So it's important that you're able to just kind of pick up on that and know what to look for. So the one that we don't like to talk about, the one that's a lot very heavy, is sexual abuse. It's very common, unfortunately, as we talked about, 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 4 boys. A lot of it goes unreported. This is not just physical contact. There's contact and then there's non-contact sexual abuse, and it's important for you to know that. So contact is obvious, right? Any kind of advancements, and some things I just can't say because we're on YouTube, so I want to be careful here. Any kind of this is all contact sexual abuse. Non-contact is a little bit harder to identify, but this is showing certain images to children or taking images of children when they're not appropriate. Certain kind of explicit talk, texting and correspondence, and then suggestive internet contact. Now, things you can look out for: pain, itching, bruising, bleeding in certain areas, pain or discomfort. If you see a child start walking differently or not being able to sit on their bottom and there's no reason that you can figure out why that would be, those are signs that something has already happened. A mark that has changed the child's behavior. So if they're normally quiet, but now all of a sudden they're super loud and rambunctious and angry, or they're normally loud and rambunctious and hyper, and now all of a sudden they're quiet. You have to look at your child's behavioral patterns and then be able to identify changes. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I mean, I think this is great information for every parent to look at this, to hear this, to definitely get involved with the Bold Advocate and check out what you're doing to help others. It's eye-opening and it makes me angry all at the same time. The fact that there's people out there in this world that do this to anybody, but I mean, again, like I said earlier, to kids. I mean,
a lot of people want to chalk up a teenager's sudden change in attire or the way that they dress as being, well, that's just teenager stuff. But actually, a lot of times there's something deeper happening there. And so we want to ask a lot of questions. So if they have a sudden change in dress where they're all of a sudden dressing really baggy, or really tight and provocative, these are signs that they're either being groomed or they've already been sexually abused. Also with that, in that same vein, if all of a sudden they just start taking excessive amounts of showers, these are signs that they feel dirty and they just can't get clean.
Right.
If all of a sudden they used to be able to eat, a Wendy's number 5 and down it with a Baconator fry or something, and all of a sudden they run to the bathroom every time they eat. That's a sign of an eating disorder, and you need to dig deeper because that eating disorder has a root, and you need to find out what that root is.
Yeah.
For younger kids, John, it's going to be more like sexual play, where they learn that from somewhere. So if they start putting toys in certain areas or start mimicking certain kinds of acts, that is a huge sign that something is not right.
Right.
If they start drawing a certain way, that's a little bit more of an obvious sign, but it's something to take into consideration. One that's not talked about much is neglect. So the failure to meet basic human needs is neglect. I unfortunately was a child that was neglected. I would have to steal my lunch money just to eat lunch at school. So keep in mind that it's not just sexual abuse and physical abuse and emotional, but neglect is a big deal. So different signs of neglect: failure to provide adequate medical care. If you have a child who's constantly sick and is not getting better, you need to start asking more questions. Unattended medical needs, malnourishment, frequent hunger. I used to serve in our church a lot. If there was a child that would come in and they were starving when they got there, I gave them a snack. They're starving again, and then they didn't want to go home. Those are all signs.
Avoiding doing everything possible to avoid having to go home and staying with other people, whether it's baseball practice, church, after school, curricular activity. Like that's crazy. And that's something I never thought about. But yeah, I mean, if they never want to go home, they want to do everything as possible to avoid going back home to where their parents are.
Yeah, a few other things I did want to mention for younger kids, because I feel like it's a lot easier to communicate with older kids to be able to try to identify when something's happening. But with younger kids, if they start regressing where, they were potty trained and now all of a sudden they're wetting the bed all the time, or they're really, really clingy, those are signs of abuse. Sudden fear, we talked about, of specific people. A drop in school performance is another big sign. So they loved extracurriculars, they loved school before, but now all of a sudden they're not interested, they're not performing well. And maybe there was no other changes that happened. It's time to start digging a little bit deeper and having some hard conversations.
Right.
Then there's the obvious ones, right, John? Suicide attempts for the older kids, cutting, self-injury, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And anytime you see a compliance shift where someone was very obedient before, but now very rebellious, or the opposite, was very rebellious and now super obedient to the point where they don't want to displease anyone, these are signs of abuse.
Well, right. Like what that one slide said, where they're just so terrified to make any kind of mistake.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, absolutely. So we talked about a lot of physical dangers. Let's talk a little bit about digital dangers. So I know kids love being online. I get it. I enjoy being online myself. I try to find more purpose in it than just scrolling, however. So there's different platforms that are just more dangerous for kids than others. So a few of those platforms: Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Why? They don't have enough protections to make sure children are safe. And I'll give you a few examples. So Roblox, the CEO just recently came out and said that he wants to make Roblox into a virtual dating app. The average age on Roblox is 5 years old. 40% of the users are less than 12. So I don't understand why we would want to shift to a dating app if the primary bulk of the people are minors.
Right.
It makes no sense. But to go even further, they recently banned a user from the platform who was identifying predators and turning them into the authorities. He got over, I think it was 6 or 8 predators arrested on the platform, and Roblox just served him a cease and desist letter. So last night,
a hero.
They are protecting the privacy of predators, but they're demonizing the people that are actually trying to protect kids. So I did create a petition. You can find it on my website. It's on change.org, to hold Roblox accountable, to demand a safe space for kids. Some of the other platforms, Snapchat's no surprise, right? At the moment you send something, shortly after that, it erases. A lot of these platforms, Instagram now has a map feature where if you're not aware of it, your location is being shared with all of your followers and anybody that you follow. I thankfully had my location services turned off, but I checked on the map and I could see where thousands of my followers were around the world, their exact location. So it's important, guys, that we consider and we know what our kids are doing online. So how do we respond though, right? So we suspect something. How do we respond? What do we do? Document, 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 document. I cannot say that enough. You need to be able to document patterns of abuse and grooming. So that way, when or if anything escalates, you can report that to authorities with proper documentation. Be proactive and talk to your kids. Ask a lot of questions and make this just part of your family culture.
Yeah.
Of on a daily basis talking to your kids and wanting to know your kids more. Don't make it always about heavy things. Ask them what their favorite color is, their favorite TV show, all these kinds of things. So that way, when the heavier things come up, they're already used to talking to you about all the things and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One thing that I, as a mama bear, always want to do is confront the bad guy. Unless I have legal and safety backup, there's no reason I should be doing that. I should be going to the authorities and I should be having that discussion with them with all my documentation in hand. That might be photos, that might be chat logs, that could be videos. There's so many different ways that you can document what you might suspect to be grooming or abuse. And I know we're going a little over time. Are we okay?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. All right. So how to prevent child abuse. So we talked about the signs. Continue to learn the signs of abuse, neglect, trafficking, exploitation, and grooming. I have tons of resources on my website, free downloads. There are some paid products on there as well. I have poured years into these products of just educating myself. I've read tons of books. I've taken tons of professional courses that teach caregivers how to identify abuse and these things. So I just poured it into a course and resources where everyday people can take and access, because I noticed that there is not a way for your everyday person to be able to be equipped. It's usually caregivers that have access to these courses.
Right. Oh.
We talked about talking to your kids. Learn your child's online presence and identity. Who I am in person is different than who I am online. I want people to see a certain side of me online. That's the majority of us. But your child's presence and identity is going to be different online than in person. Know where they are online. Be involved with them online. And make sure that they don't talk to people online that they don't know in person. Having the chat feature off on video games is fantastic. There's no reason that they really need to talk to people, strangers that they don't know online. So
No.
my 14-year-olds are not allowed to have the chat feature on Fortnite. They do play Fortnite. I play Fortnite with them. Maybe that's why I'm such a good shot in person, John. I don't know.
It could
Although
be.
my daughters learned firearms training Saturday. Did I tell you this yet?
I think we talked about it yesterday. Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, go. You definitely tell everybody because it's impressive the distance.
So amazing instructors at WAFT. Buck Lawler and Santi, they both taught my daughters one-on-one. Like, wherever do you get one-on-one instruction, John, unless you're paying out the wazoo for it, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it wasn't like a class of 14 to 2. It was 2 instructors, my husband, me, and my two daughters. That's incredible. But they went from being able to now take apart a gun, knowing all the parts of a gun, shooting at 5 yards, all the way to 60 yards,
Yeah.
and hitting targets with a handgun. What?
That's so awesome. I wish I would have been there to see them do that.
Well, I have
The fact that
videos, so
oh, I want to see that. The fact that
I
your
can
daughters
prove
are
it.
hitting targets at 60 yards with a pistol. Keep in
One,
mind, folks,
so
this is with a pistol, not with a rifle,
with a
with a
pistol,
pistol, 60
yeah, an
yards.
HK. It wasn't like, anything like super fancy. It was an HK. They did a fantastic job. One of my daughters missed the first shot, and then she got the second shot. I missed the first shot. I did get the second shot on that 60-yard line. But then my other daughter, who's 14, she got it the first try.
That's so amazing.
Yeah,
So
it
cool.
was quite impressive. So, but I want to encourage everybody, build a culture of care, compassion, love, and respect, not just in your home, but also in your workplace. If you're a manager or a supervisor of any sort, this goes a long way in our culture, um, especially a culture of death, like I call it, because it's not common anymore that you have a family that is compassionate and caring and loving and respectful to the kids, not
Right.
just to the adults. All right, so real quick, mandatory reporting in every state is different. The rule of thumb that I like to go by is the law in Florida. If you suspect abuse, report abuse. Report it. The burden of proof is not on you. The burden of proof is on the authorities. Now, if you've documented everything, then you are golden, right? You can hand that documentation over to the authorities. All right, so I've talked a lot. I'm almost tired of hearing my own voice. So if you're not already following me, you can scan that QR code and you can follow me on Instagram. I just have some of my other socials up here. You can also email me. Email me with questions. You want to have a personal conversation about something. I do trainings as well for virtual trainings like this. I've taught a ton of youth groups and churches, Awana clubs around the country. I'm happy to facilitate that for you as well. So check me out on social, check out my website. My website has a ton of resources.
Yeah.
I love working with Firearms Legal Protection because they're doing what I am striving to do by keeping my kids and your kids safe. Because if I'm in public and I see a kid in danger, that is all of a sudden my kid and I'm running to their rescue. So thank you, John, for having me on today.
No, thank you for being on here with us. And I mean, I learned so much, and it was, you know, I know you said like, oh, I've been talking so much. Well, that was the point, because you're the only expert right now on here. When it comes to this topic, you're the only expert. If we're talking gun laws, we're talking about firearms, we're talking about holsters. I mean, it doesn't mean a whole array of topics that I can talk about. I can't talk about this like you can. So I really appreciate you coming on here to educate our followers, to educate our members, and to definitely, throw her a follow on her social media, but definitely go check out her website, The Bold Advocate. There's a lot of free downloads on there, a lot of helpful information that you can use to have discussions with your family, with your kids. Definitely make sure you go check it out. She's put a lot of work and effort into it. And again, there's plenty of free downloads on there. So there's no reason not to go there and check it out and kind of see what you're missing. Because I mean, if you guys didn't catch on from this, and I'm sure you did, she has so much passion when it comes to keeping people safe and especially protecting kids. She can talk for another 3 weeks easily on this topic. So there's so much more to know, just like with everything in life. There's always more information that we need. And I'm so happy that you were on here tonight with us and giving this information to our followers, really.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm back, and
Ariana's
Rebecca, yeah, she's back. She's here.
Yay.
Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I think we can all agree you've given us a new level of awareness on this topic for sure. And I know for sure I was sitting in the back over here just astounded. I'm just like, you're constantly bringing in information I haven't heard of or been privy of, especially with the kids' toys situation out there they're getting exposed to. I think that's absolutely insane, and it's a little sickening. But
yeah, I didn't know anything about that. I was like, when you said that, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's not okay. But before we get into the Q&A, I'd like to take a quick moment to just talk about why it's so important to not only recognize these warning signs discussed tonight, but also just to have the right support in place, whether things like this escalate. Hopefully this never happens to any of you guys watching or anybody out there, but it's just the harsh reality that we live in. But keep in mind, safety doesn't always end with awareness like this, like what Rebecca has given us tonight. It also extends with being prepared in case something ever does go wrong. And I'm going to quickly discuss what FLP, this logo back here, what FLP offers our members, and we'll then quickly get into the Q&A.
Firearms Legal Protection offers several different memberships to whoever is interested in signing up for legal protection. These plans are divided into individual plans and a family plan, which some benefits and pricing vary state by state. For the purposes of this webinar, we will look at our most common plans and benefits that are available in most states. The individual basic plan includes protection in your state of residence. It also includes uncapped payment of attorney fees for defense of criminal and civil cases. Firearms Legal Protection memberships also extend to all legal weapons, including non-lethal weapons. With the individual basic plan, you also have Defense of Extreme Risk Protection Orders, also known as red flag laws. All plans have access to the 24/7 emergency attorney answered hotline, so no matter a time an incident may occur, you can count on our hotline and an attorney will pick up for immediate attorney-client privileges. You also have access to the MyFLP mobile app and one of our recently added benefits, expungement of criminal record on non-conviction incidents. Members of all plans also receive access to digital content and special discounts. The next step up is the individual premium plan. This plan has nationwide coverage and also includes all the benefits just mentioned and payment of bail bond premium, payment of expert witness and investigator fees if either are needed in your case. There's also coordination of counseling support, payment of lost wages if you are out of work during trial, and a list of other benefits. We also have the family premium plan to choose from for those who want the same protection also applied to their family. For just a little bit more, you get all the benefits that were just mentioned applied to your spouse and all minor children. If you want more information over these benefits, then check out our Instagram or Facebook page for uploaded explained benefit videos. Remember, if you, friends, or family are not already protected by Firearms Legal Protection, please click the link below for a special discount we offer our webinar viewers. Now, let's get back to today's webinar.
Okay, and we're back. So we have some pre-submitted questions. We'll quickly roll through those. A lot of it will be a little bit of a recap, but it'll be good to just refresh. And then I just saw one comment come through, which we can probably address pretty quickly at the end, or you guys will mainly Rebecca will be addressing.
Yeah, that'll be for Rebecca, but that's a great question from Rick.
No, it is. Yeah. I mean, we can just, you guys can talk about it right now if you'd like. Then we can get into the pre-submitted.
Absolutely. So a few basic things that you want to make sure that you document. His question was, what are the essential elements to document for a given encounter? Okay, so the names of the individuals, ages of the individuals, dates and times and locations of the incident that happened. Detail as much as you can of what happened, including specific actions, conversations, and behaviors. Note if the grooming involved gifts, promises, threats, or coercion. Include any patterns of behavior that you have been able to identify over time and how long that has happened. Let's see what else. What kind of abuse has happened if it's not just grooming that you're suspecting? So physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, neglect, all those things. If it's happening online, take screenshots, record the messages, the emails, any social media interactions. That website that I mentioned earlier for online enticement, abuse, grooming is report.cybertip. So you should, let me just verify that that is indeed correct. I just want to, because I second guess everything. Okay, yes, report.cybertip.org. A few other things. So, and then because you're going to be questioned by the authorities when you report this, unless you report anonymously at report.cybertip.org, you want to make sure that you can explain how you learned of the abuse. So were you a firsthand witness of the abuse? Did the child tell you of the abuse or the grooming. And then physical evidence you want to document by way of photographs. If it's bad enough, of course, you want to get them to the doctor as soon as possible. And I can, if it would serve people well, I can make a document and put it on my website of how to properly document these things. And I can work on that, probably have it posted by tomorrow. But these are just a few things. You want to be factual, you want to be objective, and you want to avoid assumptions, okay? You don't want to put any opinions in the documentation. You want everything to be black and white as far as facts being presented. And then keep your documentation secure. You don't want to just share this with people. You want to make sure that it is in a secure place, that nobody else can access it, especially if you have other kids around or other professionals. So that's what I would say. I know that's a long answer. I know it's a lot to think about, but thankfully this is being recorded and you can go back and watch it again.
Exactly. That was a great question and a fabulous answer, of course. Let's go through the pre-submitted questions now. All right, first one, definitely recap, obviously, what exactly is grooming and how is it different from regular kindness or mentoring?
Yeah. So grooming is the deliberate process of gaining trust, gaining access, lowering defenses purposefully of that individual and that family to increase a child's dependency on that individual. And it's usually done very secretively in the sense where that person's having private conversations and trying to isolate that child from the parents. A mentor is not going to isolate a child from their parents. If somebody's just being kind, they're not going to try to isolate and have private discussions with that child, right? So that's the big difference. A coach who insists on having a Snapchat with his wrestlers, that's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Or like what you were saying earlier during the webinar when you were talking about the ones that try to relate with the kids and act like, I understand, your parents don't understand you. Like, I don't understand that. Like, advice that I've always given to my friends' kids, to nephews, to nieces, it's always been, listen to your parents. They know what's best for you. They want what's best for you. It's not like, they just don't understand you. Like, why would you say that to a kid?
Yeah.
It's their parents.
It's emotional manipulation. They will do what they can to drive a wedge between their protectors and the child.
And then you seem as the trustworthy person that they can run to.
Yeah. Kids are so receptive, and it's just sad how they can be molded that way, and adults will take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else. So we transparency versus secrecy, right? I'm never going to give a child advice that I would not say in front of their parents.
Right.
Boundaries being respected versus boundaries being eroded. So if a child doesn't want to hug uncle or doesn't want to hug a coach or whatever the case is, they should not be made to hug them. We talked about this a little bit, equality versus specialness, where a coach should be teaching and paying equal attention to every single player on the team, teacher to student, pastor to youth members. Anytime that there is special attention where they are favoritizing one over the other, we need to dig deeper. So that's what I would say as far as that question is concerned. Did that answer it pretty well?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next question. Are there certain warning signs that someone might be attempting to groom a child or a vulnerable person?
Yeah. So just to recap, Volunteers who insist on unsupervised time with kids, rides home, practice after hours, extra credit time, frequent direct messages without it being in group chats, rule testing. So just pushing the boundaries, pushing the rules a little bit. Don't tell your parents, they'll worry, kind of thing. It's fine. We don't need another adult in this situation. Those kinds of phrases are huge red flags that kids should be aware of. Anytime that they're told to keep a secret from their parents, that should raise a red flag for them. We talked about gift giving and favoritism, boundary crossing. Kids should have bodily boundaries. They should know how to enforce bodily boundaries. If somebody makes them physically uncomfortable, they should know how to respond to that. And they should have a trusted adult that they can go to, and they can tell without their mom blaming them for that grooming situation. What else? We talked about parental undermining. We talked about not keeping secrets. And then with vulnerable people, so people with special needs, foster care, adoptive, and like recent trauma, excessive rescuing, over involvement in therapy and school plans, and isolating from other student or from prior support. So trying to convince a child that they don't need this support system, they're all the support that they need. And then filling in that need with material things that help them physically. So those are different warning signs that I would look out for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a good. Yeah. Okay. We have some more to run through. How do grooming habits look different online versus in person?
Yeah. So, oops. So online, when someone is having instant, quick access to be able to talk to a child, and then I think it's really important too that you talk to your kids about, like I mentioned, only talking to people that they know in person. There's a trend that's happening right now where there's scammers, large groups of scammers that are targeting teenage boys specifically and posing as teenage girls. And they will say and do things like sending them nudes of the teenage girls in hopes that the boys will send it back to them of their own kind. So that way they can manipulate, sextort them, things of that sort. So it looks a little bit different in that sense because usually the person online is not who they pretend to be. So if you have a hard rule of not talking to somebody that you don't know in person online, you can avoid that if your child obeys. So they do identity masking, they do sextortion patterns, they use different tools that where messages can disappear, like on Snapchat. They have hidden folders and they use geolocations, VPNs, things like this to be able to mask their true identity. Versus in person, you're dealing with usually people that you know that are grooming that child. And that's where they are building the trust, filling a need, showering with gifts, isolating the child from you, becoming emotionally involved with the child. So online, there's a lot of masked identities happening where in person, you know the person and you can pick up on those patterns a little bit easier.
Okay.
Does that make sense, guys?
Oh, yeah.
It does.
Okay.
All right. Next question. How can parents or guardians talk to their children about grooming without scaring them?
Yeah, it does start young in the sense of you call body parts what it is, first of all. Okay. Having little pet names for body parts will confuse a child if an adult then, crosses that line. So it's important to call body parts the correct names. I would say also that there's books that you can read to help you with this particular topic. And those books are even specific to children. There's, and I have them actually listed on my website. On the resource page, there's a book section, and there's a list of different books that you can read both to your children and for your own personal growth to be able to have these conversations. But I would definitely start by equipping yourself. But just like I said, talk to your kids about all the things so that way when these topics come up, then it's not scary to them. They have to know that there's bad guys in this world. That should not be a shock to them. So that's what I would say. Make yourself the safest place. Do not overreact when a child tells you something. If you overreact or you get angry with them, they're not going to come to you anymore. You won't be their safe place. So you want to make sure that you're their safe place. You want to make sure that you communicate to them by them coming forward. They're not going to be the one to get in trouble. Too often kids think that they'll be the ones to get in trouble. Maybe they broke a rule, right? Maybe they talked to someone online that they shouldn't have. Now they have to come to you, their mom, their dad, their grandpa, whoever, and say, Mom, I know you told me I shouldn't be talking to this person, but I talked to this person. This person's making me uncomfortable and da-da-da-da-da. They're going to be more scared that they're going to get in trouble by you than the consequence of them continuing that interaction. So don't overreact. Be approachable. Be compassionate. Be a peer to your kid in the sense where, yes, you have authority over them. Yes, you're teaching them, but they should know that mom and dad or their caregivers are also struggling with sin or whatever the case is, and that they are no greater than the child is. They should be able to come to you with whatever it is, and you should be their safe place. And then create family rules that you can enforce, like devices in public places, no phones behind closed doors, parent visible accounts. I should have the password to their phones. I should have the password to their Fortnite account, all these things. So that way there's no secrecy. I tell my kids all the time, we don't keep secrets from each other. We can have surprises, right? Surprise, birthday party, no secrets. So that's what I would say about that.
That is a nice way to put it too. Not secrets, but surprises.
Yeah.
And it's always having a good communication too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a couple more questions. There was a couple comments that just rolled through as well, which I feel like might rope in a little bit with some of these last questions, but we can go through these real quick as well. What role does online safety play in preventing grooming? Which you kind of talked about this just a bit ago.
Yeah. So, just having those layered defenses are so important. Know your child's phone. Set up parental controls on that phone. There's a Bark app that you can download for your kids' phones that you have access anytime that something inappropriate is exchanged. You'll get a flag. You won't be able to see everything that they're talking about with their friends, but if anything like self-harm, exploitation, pornography, anything that could be damaging, bullying, anything like that for a child, you'll be flagged on that. You'll get notified. There's also a Wi-Fi box that you can install that will protect every device that's connected to that Wi-Fi from accessing certain kinds of websites. So there's different measures that you can take as a parent to create a layered defense for online activity.
Yeah. All right. I feel like this next question kind of goes in a little bit with what the most recent comment said. So I feel like it would be a good rope in. But what resources exist for reporting grooming behavior before abuse happens? And in this question that they had sent, it was, would you say, like, when would you say is the time to pull the trigger on making that report? So, like, what are the avenues if you feel like the report's being heard as well?
I think that was supposed to say what are avenues if you feel like the reports are not being heard. I think they forgot the are not, would be my guess. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Heavy Irons. But I feel like that was supposed to say what are the avenues if you feel like the reports are not being heard.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of times if someone, especially online, is grooming your child, they're grooming other children as well. So even if you call the authorities, and a lot of times your local police don't have the capacity to do cyber crime evaluations and investigations. So that's why I usually recommend anytime that there's a cyber crime that's happening that's involving children, that you report it to that report.cybertip.org website, because what they do is they do an investigation based off of your report. They pull a ton of resources together, and then based off of the location of the crime, they'll try to identify the IP address, they'll try to identify the accounts and the individuals. They will send that to actually usually federal authorities, like Secret Service. A lot of people don't realize Secret Service is involved with trafficking prevention and investigation. That sounded a little weird for a second. But for example, I have submitted tons of reports on that website. And right now there's a huge investigation happening in Japan for a child trafficking ring happening out of Kobe, Japan. I've gotten people arrested in India and Africa, somebody in Canada, all from reporting it on that website, because they pull different resources together to put all of the evidence together on their end, and then they send it over to the local authorities for the arrest. So that's why I say document as much as you can. Get links to their social pages, get links to the emails, all of these things, so that way you have evidence to be able to submit, and it's not just, hearsay, so to say. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it definitely does. And then he had a follow-up one as well on for like the older community who can't fend for themselves.
Yeah. So here in Florida, the abuse hotline is not just for children, it's also for the vulnerable. And I believe it's that way throughout every state. So you should be able to report elder and vulnerable adult abuse to the same entities that you're reporting child abuse to.
Whatever the abuse hotline is that you have in your state.
And it varies state by state and different localities. So I would just encourage you to look up your local resources.
Yeah. All right. There was one more pre-submitted question, and then we'll wrap this up. What's the most important thing every adult should know to help protect kids from grooming?
Yeah. I would say predators exploit secrecy, isolation, and confusion. You need to beat them by building openness, connection, and clear boundaries with your kids. So you have to do the best that you can to get ahead of it before it starts. And then even after it starts, being able to, if you suspect it, sitting down with them and showing them compassion and showing them that they're not going to get in trouble by telling you this information. You really want to protect them, putting you in their shoes. It's so important that you understand that they're not even emotionally and rationally fully developed yet to be able to process what's going on. So being able to create that openness and clearly communicate that they deserve boundaries. children, adults, they deserve boundaries. And if somebody crosses a boundary, there's consequences to that. It might not be arresting that person. Unfortunately, we all have to recognize and acknowledge that the law in America, unfortunately, protects people unless you can prove it. And you really have to have a lot of evidence to be able to prove grooming and abuse. So acknowledge that there's a chance that me reporting it is not going to result in anything, but that doesn't mean there's not consequences. Boundaries have been crossed. I need to cut this person off. And if they continue to pursue, that's harassment, that's stalking. Right. And then I have a larger case I'm going to continue to document. But then that goes even further. You need to be able to protect your family physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And if there's ever a chance, and there is a chance because of the culture we live in, that you have to defend yourself, you need an FLP plan, people. You need one. I have so much peace of mind knowing that if I have to defend me or my kids, I have an army behind me to support me and my kids. Like, that is a game changer for me. So build a great communication, a great openness. Your best defense is a prepared child and a watchful community. So if you're a churchgoer, if you have kids in public school, ask them questions. I have on my website 50 questions that you can ask any organization that's caring for your kids. These questions are going to expose whether or not they're taking every precaution possible to prevent wolves in sheep's clothing from coming in contact with your kids. So the best defense is a prepared kid and a watchful community. Ask the hard questions. Don't be ashamed to ask the hard questions. Why? Because your kid's life is on the line. So be bold, ask the hard things, have the hard conversations, be gentle with your kids, be compassionate with your kids, be approachable by your kids, and have a plan. Have a plan before you need one.
Yeah. I almost forgot it was on screen. I was just like,
yeah.
I'm like,
okay, and one more thing. I created a mnemonic to help you, okay? It's bold because I am the bold advocate. So the first letter for B is boundaries. Clear rules, no secrets, boundaries. The O is open dialogue, ongoing talks with no shame. Your kid should be able to come to you and say, Mom, I'm struggling and I need your help. Okay. And you should be able to have that conversation without them feeling shameful in the midst of that, because you're a peer to them. Yes, I have these struggles too. It's okay. We are human. We're not perfect. L, layered supervision. People plus policies plus tech. So make sure that you have a layered defense of supervision. And then D, document and report. Be ready to document and report early, make it fact-based, and make it safe.
That's great. Yeah, we like that acronym. I need to put it in the description so people have it, but obviously you have the course information in there too. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Are there any last comments that you guys want to end on before I wrap up our webinar for tonight?
I just want to say thank you to Becca for this eye-opening education that we received today, and hopefully it's the same for the people that watched live and the people that are going to watch later. It's like I've said a million times, it's so eye-opening and it's so frustrating all at the same time. It sucks that this is something we have to talk about in society and that we have to do to keep our kids safe. But unfortunately, it's reality. You know, the world's not a perfect place. There are evil people out there, and we need to make sure that we protect ourselves against that evil.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, alrighty, everyone. I'm going to wrap things up for tonight. To everyone watching, thank you all for taking the time to be a part of this important discussion. I know it was a little bit more of a lengthy webinar, but all the info shared was definitely worth the time spent here tonight. Absolutely. But while grooming is a pretty serious topic, remember that awareness is very empowering. So the more you recognize the signs, the more we can act early, and the more we can create a safe space for the people that we care about. So if you would like to access more of this information regarding the topic, then click the link in the caption or in the description of the webinar to access Rebecca's course and more information there on her website as well. And if you found this webinar helpful, then I encourage all of you guys to keep joining us for the monthly webinars. We cover a variety of topics from situational awareness, everyday carry, legal protection after self-defense incident, all with the goal of helping you all stay safer and smarter and more confident out there. But you can all find our past webinars on our YouTube channel, and just be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. But thank you again so much, Rebecca and John, of course, for being here tonight. And thank you.
It was the Becca show today for this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted it.
I was here to
Happy to
learn
be
like
here.
everybody else.
Right. But everyone, remember, protect yourself and we'll protect you. Have a great night, everyone. Night.
Bye, guys.